But he did good. It looks good. It's coming together nicely. He's getting good at paperwork.
One goal starts good.
It's a relative term, all right? But the back end looks good. So the recording's on whenever you want to start.
Call the meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee to order. Mark, will you provide us with the invocation,
I
please?
sure will. Please bow our heads for a moment of prayer. First of all, we want to recognize in our presence as our Lord Jesus Christ. We ask that He guide us in our decision-making as we conduct township business as well as the parks and recreational business. We also ask for His grace, and we also ask for His protection and good grace in terms of those who are not with us, who are in need, who have their own particular challenges. But at the same time, we thank Him for all the benefits and all the wonderful things He has blessed us with. We recognize in His name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a roll call.
What's that? Me?
All right.
Michael Bennett,
Here.
Marvin Nash, Grant here, Randall,
Here.
Mike Somerville.
Present.
The agenda, the approval of last month's agenda. Anybody have any questions on or corrections to make on the agenda from last month?
The agenda would be this agenda.
Oh, this, oh, I'm sorry,
The current.
current agenda. No additions, changes? Have a motion to approve?
I will, Chairman, that this agenda as presented before us be accepted.
I second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Agenda is accepted. Approval of the last meeting's minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the last meeting's minutes.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor of accepting last meeting minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All, any opposed? Carries. All right, I think we're ready for the parks report. Justin?
The Bagel Sports Park, the old place that jungle gym and teeter totter have been removed. I was able to salvage the teeter totter and did it as storage until we are at a place to put back in. The rubber mulch at the playground has been removed and discarded. After have accurate excavation come through, level off the playing area for the new play set. The pavilion at Beagle had a couple shingles blow off over the course of the year. I went and repaired them. And then just a couple weeks ago, I realized that one row of shingles missing now. So we're potentially looking at redoing the roof. Okay, non-weather, we can push out another year and just keep on putting repairs or just put in next year's budget. We ordered new polyester flags, replaced the American flags there. The parking lot's been graded quite a few times, and people enjoy doing donuts there. Had Sonic Marrow come in one day drifting. Haley Park's been keeping it maintained, removed the porch johns at all the parks and cemeteries with the exception of the transfer station. Talbot Park, we installed a new sign, first time that I know of that we've ever had one there, so that's good things. Then unexpectedly, we had received the Eagle permit to get the boat launch dredged. So that's gonna be fun. That's what's on the packet here. About our thought is revamp that boat launch to see the best way that we can do it, and then can utilize that at the other boat launch that we have. The duck field has been, park has been removed, equestrian park. Planning on plowing this winter and probably been there a couple times. Bike path, we trimmed it up. All the trees along it. It's got a couple parking lots that we are plowing this season there too, as well as I'm going to attempt to keep it opened up between McMillan and River Road so people can use it for walking. Then trying to make sign, Christmas tree is out, the new one is in place, now already lit up with Christmas lights. That's it.
Questions on the report? Then we will move on. I open now to public comment. Anybody from the public? Welcome to comment at this moment.
Okay, I just want to first, I like how this is kind of informal, but I want to thank Justin publicly for the attention and to detail and things that you have done to the equestrian park just in the last 6-8 months is amazing. And we are so grateful that it's getting attention, with plowing and whatnot, because before that we had discussed having somebody come in and volunteer to do that on their own time. And sometimes people, you just can't find them. So the fact that you're now doing it is amazing and very much appreciated.
No problem. I hope that I can continue doing it, but like I said,
Yep.
I may not be able to sometimes, so.
That's absolutely okay. We're thankful for whatever you can do, So, and we had a guy, I forget what company he was from, but he would come through and just plow up a couple plow throughs, on his way home from work. So I will reach out to him. I meant to do that, but I will reach out to him to make sure that he's still on board for PRN or as needed, if we get really dumped on and want to utilize that space. So, yes, thank you so much, Justin.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks for using it.
Oh, it's used a lot. It's a great park. Had a little couple snafus that we're still working out, but we love that. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in those trails and a lot of miles. So very appreciative. Dalton's like my little heart place, It's like going home. But and then the other thing that I think is also on the agenda, and we don't need to talk about it now, is that pertaining to the issues that we are running into, talking about doing a survey or having somebody come out and show where the stakes are for the property lines. Because we did not know that there was trails on Fruitland Township parcels and we were not alerted. Mind you, I'm one person, I can't do everything. So it slipped that I didn't realize that this was happening. And a lot of our trail, as you know, not a lot, I would say about 25%. And one of the major boundary trails is now blocked off. We can't access that anymore. And I'm concerned because we do have people that continue to ride that and bypass those signs and bypass those boards because, that's what we've always done. Well, now we can't do that. So, and asking for the survey, my thought was to get the actual lines, get the actual property lines of this park so that we can make sure that it's protected and preserved going forward. There is a possible expansion that we're working on with Lakewood Club to access their parcels across the way. And so the people that we've had issues with on Lakewood that throw metal and dig holes and take down my signs and take down the tags, even though they are on Dalton Township property, according to my calculations, measurements, map, whatever. We may be needing to utilize that space. And right now it's not safe because the people there just do not want to cooperate. We've had problems with them, like I said, digging holes, covering up holes that, with brush, like a trap. There's a huge chunk of metal. It almost looks like a tabletop right in the middle of one of the trails. And I've never been there when they've been outside, but when I went through after speaking with you the first time it happened, I went through with the trail tape ribbon and put Dalton Township property and tagged trees. And then because they have a trail that comes into that, I used a different color ribbon and put private property, do not cross. So that it was alerted that, hey, listen, we're gonna respect your property, please respect our trail. And a week later it was down. So in fact, not even 2 months ago, probably about 6 weeks ago, we went out there to do some trail maintenance and they had taken and cut trees down over the trail. So,
Where is this at?
Might be time for some trail cams.
well,
That's something that we're.
I think that was one of the ideas that we had talked about. And I know that you had sent a letter or two, or I'm not sure, but it's so frustrating because we're not harming anything, being back there. And it just,
Where is this at?
it is right by Lakewood.
Okay, but.
Just on the south side of Lakewood, on the west side of the bridge, which is where the horse trail comes in contact with my.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in the village of
Got
Lakewood?
that map up there too.
No, okay, it's on the south side, okay,
Okay, so it's literally like right here,
okay,
right here.
all right.
So, and it's according to my measurements, my maps, my things that I've researched, I've sent copies to Jeff numerous times and we still just continue to, it's to the point where we're just like, a lot of people don't ride that trail. And I understand, but now that we've got the parcels removed and 25% of our trail gone, and we're looking at expanding into being able to ride over on Lakewood side, it would be really nice to have something that says, this is where we're supposed to be, this is where you're supposed to be, let's just be good neighbors and coexist.
So are you asking that either some signs be established, some official signs from the township?
Any signs I have put up, including signs I've gotten from you, have been taken down and destroyed.
There been any?
By property owners? There's,
I would assume so.
Assume, but we don't know.
we don't.
Yeah,
The amount of footage like that they own that butts up, is it like 100 feet, 200 feet, is acres? Like, only reason I ask is because like, just put a fence in.
I can show you on my Onyx if you want to see it.
So this comes up again later on your agenda, so.
Yeah, we can, if we want to keep going, I'll show
I'm
you.
curious though, right? Cause like if it's, 100 feet, here's the fence and then we know who took it down,
Well, and I don't know, did they unincorporate that road?
I don't think so.
We may need to utilize that then if he didn't unincorporate that road that I was told 2 or 3 years ago they were gonna try to do. I just-
100% sure.
I don't know what the animosity is there, so I would like to have something on paper in black and white that says, knock it off. We're within our property boundaries to be here.
I don't think they can unincorporate a road that's got public land on one side of it. That's what you're asking.
You would have to go through a road commission, abandonment, a township
Yeah.
vacation, and then a circuit court trial.
It's like a whole ordeal, yeah.
Deed adjustment. I've seen people go through it, it's possible.
They've done some in Sullivan Township on some of the roads that we ride there. So, but it's quite the lengthy process.
Right in here. There's 31, there's Lakewood Road,
Oh, yeah, okay, yep.
so it's up in this portion.
It's that little, yep, right there.
You can see this one's Dalton Township, so this one's private. Private.
There's a little one in the middle of what's owned by Dalton Township.
That little corner right to the upper left,
Yeah,
right
Over
there.
by the highway.
Okay.
So that's the obstacle.
Yes.
And is someone living on that property,
Yes.
or they
Yes.
have anyone had conversations with?
They have not, anytime, I think I've seen them out once and they had their dogs and their birds, their chickens and birds and whatever out. So we just rode on by, waved hello, and off we went.
Might be helpful to engage them to
Yeah.
get an idea of what they're thinking. Because they may figure that all that land is their land, not knowing there's a,
Well, and I have, one of the girls that I used to go to school with lived on, automobile and knew the people that lived in that, house. And, I tried to contact her through Facebook. I tried to contact her through email. But at that point, I didn't want to engage anymore because I didn't want it to become an issue and a bigger issue than what we already had.
but communication is so important because you don't know what they're thinking.
Right. Well, and I think, like I said, you had tried to send them a letter or two and
And that was a year, maybe 2 years ago. I made a bigger push on it, so I don't remember all of the details. I think I sent them letters and maybe had a phone conversation. Is I think how that went. So, and how it is in my mind is they basically don't like the horse people coming close to the land because they think the horse people are encroaching on their land, essentially. And that's basically the disagreement.
So were they had adversarial behavior?
I would say my interaction with them was more standoffish.
Okay.
I mean, it's a disagreement. I don't think it's going to come to a simple agreement.
I think the starting point is to survey, see where the lines are, so we know. Then maybe educate them.
Yeah.
On where the lines are.
But one thing, if you do a survey, be sure that the surveyor bury an iron stake at the corners. Because oftentimes, when you have a dispute like that, the above ground stakes will get moved. If you have them buried, then with a binder, you can relocate them very easily without having to pay for a new survey.
good to know because I know that when we've ridden out there before, I have seen a stake. It showed up. I don't know if I just didn't see it before and then, upon closer inspection that we're not gonna fall in holes and break legs, noticed it, but there is a stake out there. So I don't know if that's, and there's stakes periodically throughout the entire park. So something had been done at some point because, there's property markers in there. So that's all.
Okay, well, we'll be talking about
Yeah.
that a little bit later on, so I wanna move along.
Not a problem.
Any other comments from the public? Goes to Christmas past and future? All right, we'll move along. Discussion items are now up. The first decision, I'm sorry. The first decision item is 2025 Parks and Rec Advisory Committee schedule.
Like there
You
might
have
be
it set before you a schedule. And it's February 3rd, February 24th, June 23rd, September 22nd, December 15th.
February 24th would be April 24th.
So February 24th, well, I put that so close to it just in case we wanted to do another meeting before the budget went out. And then if we decide that we don't want to do that one, we could always take it out.
Okay.
That's my thought.
So maybe tentatively, maybe set that one. If we don't have one then, we could do one in April. Yeah.
Uh,
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Based on your.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be another month.
We could do. Let's see, the third Monday-ish. Yeah.
So
April
February
23rd.
third is the one we're having
We're
because of
definitely,
the upcoming budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, the budget gets approved in March. There's usually a couple of special meetings there by the regular board, and then goes into effect on April 1st.
So we want to support it.
is there any possibility that there's gonna be like a combined meeting that it's called, or is that something we don't worry about and you need to notify us when?
Between this board and the regular board for the budget,
Yeah,
no,
okay.
I wouldn't do that. That would be a mess. So what I've done is the joint session in the fall, once
Yes.
to have just discussion, to try to get on the same page to a certain extent. But the budget itself, no.
So if we're looking at public March date, February 24th is the last part of the month. Right before March.
And it's unknown exactly when things will occur in March according to the board.
Okay.
So they have to occur before the end of March because your budget has to start April 1st. So they could occur in middle of March, essentially at the regular March meeting, which is the second Monday, and then usually there's a special hearing on a Saturday that could occur fairly early in March or fairly late. I had it one year where I attempted to have it in the middle of March, and then we didn't have the right notices posted and everything, make it in the newspaper. We had to push it a little bit, and so it ended up happening right at the end of March. But you want to have your recommendations to them before that.
So,
In March.
so if we don't do the February 24th one, if we decide that we don't need that one, then do we go to, the last Monday in April?
The third Monday is the 21st. If you want to do the last Monday, it'd be the 28th, I guess.
Of April?
Of April as the backup.
Yes. That would put us on schedule of every other month.
And then you would just have to decide in the first February meeting if you're having a second February meeting or if you're pushing it a bit. So you could probably just add in the April one and then just can't have Justin cancel, post for canceling whatever you decide to cancel.
All right, so let's add in April, that was what?
The 21st.
First.
Okay, I need a motion and a second.
Motion to add April 21st meeting as a backup.
Can we combine?
I would combine it. So I'd have a motion of something like I approve the 2025 meetings with the addition of April 21st.
Motion to approve the 2025 meetings with the addition of a April 21st backup.
We decided on the 21st. I'm sorry, I was putting things in my calendar. So 21st.
Yeah.
The third Monday. All right.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Want a roll call vote that is written as a roll call vote.
I don't think it would be necessary to roll call vote that. On your financial recommendations, I would probably roll call vote those.
That's not six, sorry.
I have a tendency to do roll call votes when I chair things, but I do them more than necessary.
Probably with this next one, the bylaws, it should be a roll call. All right, and the next item on this is the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee bylaws. That's something that was needed at the beginning of our committee established, and so I've been working with the supervisor, Justin, on writing this up. And you received a draft earlier on, and I think at the last meeting. And then basically the final draft for review and approval tonight. If there are more changes, we can postpone approval.
I think Justin had a couple of things he had read through he wanted to hit on.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, this could be just, if you guys all agree on it being approved, it could be just approved with this. For page 4 of section 5, election officers of the advisory committee shall be held at the first regular meeting in January each year.
Right, hold on, let's
Election
get up,
officer.
caught up, okay,
Sorry.
okay.
So my question about that was, and I didn't even realize this until after I had made the post.
Yeah, it should be every other year.
Not every other year, but like the first meeting of the month, meeting of the year, instead of stating January. Because the meeting next year will be in February.
So we strike out in January.
Yes.
Yeah,
First regular meeting.
because according to the calendar that we adopted for meetings, there isn't a January.
Correct.
Yes, yep. So we substituting, or we just striking out January, or we just
Strike out in January and put out the year.
of the year?
And then it's just first meeting of the year whenever it occurs.
Striking out with each thing.
That was right. First part, decision, I put that down.
No, I would include
Is there anything else, Justin?
And for the section 8 of page 7.
Okay.
So currently it's numbered 1 through 10, and between 7 and 8, I was thinking we could put the decision items there, because there is no current decision item on the agenda.
It goes public comment to discussion items, so this proposed agenda, you would never vote on anything.
Yeah, so it's a new decision.
You're
So
right.
you want that as number 8, then you can push it
And then
and
push the other 3 down to 11.
Gotcha. Awesome problem there.
I believe that was it.
Wasn't there was one more?
You said that one was kind of about if it gets tabled, then could you bring it back?
Well, but I would still remove the 60 days
Okay.
there. Otherwise you get a conflict.
Okay, sorry. That's not.
These are good, and Justin, even though he doesn't focus on paperwork, he read through this all, he found these as proposals. So I just advise after the fact.
Okay, so then on page 8 and section 9, going down to the bottom of the paragraph, it says, at the last few sentences there, such time shall not exceed 60 days from the original request. We don't really meet every 2 months necessarily, so that would basically exempt itself, if I'm using the right word.
I hate that.
So it could either take that or bump it up to 90 or 120 days.
You could just eliminate the 2 last sentences, and then when you're making proposals, if someone decides to table something, it's then at the discretion of the person making the agenda, whether it ever comes back up again or not. Or it's a better practice, the best practice to postpone and say, I'm postponing this item till next meeting or 2 meetings from now or next February or whatever it happens to be. And you have a specific timeline that you're supposed to see it again. So just eliminate the last 2 sentences. If you just eliminate the last 2 sentences, then
Okay,
tabling and postponing work as normal, essentially.
So from such time down to shall be removed from consideration.
okay. Any other comments?
I believe that one is it.
Anybody else have comments? Okay, do I have a motion to accept the,
Practicing, you want me to try to wrap this up? Let's see.
Sure.
Alright, I'm not working, right? It's from the third meeting, right? Alright, I'd like to make a motion to approve the bylaws while making amendments or adjustments to the section 5 election of officers by making it the first regular meeting of the year instead of January. And then on page 7, adding after public comments, a new number 8 to add decision items. And then following would be discussion items, public comments, and adjournment. So 11 total. And then on page 8, section 9, to remove the 2 sentences, such time shall not exceed 60 days from the original request. At the expiration of this time limit, if such information has not been submitted, the matter shall be removed for consideration. So those 2 lines will be struck in from section 9.
I second all that.
It's an impressive motion.
What he said.
let's have a roll call.
Nickel? Yes. Marvin?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mark Grant, yes. Randall?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that means that we will get a new copy
Yes.
the next meeting.
Yes.
Sound good.
And then that can be added to your.
It'll be a binder. Yeah. Sound
That'll
good.
be the final one, right?
Yes, that will be a final.
Yes.
I believe the procedure is now that we passed it, does it have to go before the board? Even though you're not the supervisor anymore.
That's a good question because you're an advisory committee. And so like any of your budget items, that type of thing will go before the board before any changes or any policy that you want to make a recommendation on. I believe this stays with you because I think we can double consult with the resolution, but I think I stated it as that you make your own, just like you make your own schedule. And so I think that stays within your board. It's just any policy adjustments or any budgetary adjustments have to go to the board of trustees.
For me, it was kind of a gray area because the bylaws are kind of like policy of sorts.
They're a policy internal to you.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it's a good point. I would think those stay internal to you.
Did the township board create this committee?
Correct.
So if they created us, it gives us legitimacy if we put it before them to just approve it.
It's true. You could recommend it. Anything that this committee does could technically be overridden, approved, denied by the board of trustees because your authority comes from the board of trustees. And so if you wanted to send that to the board of trustees to consider and approve, that, I mean, could be fine.
I would recommend that. So it'd be part of their record.
So you make that a motion?
Yes, I will. I motion that the bylaws that we just adopted be sent to the township board for acceptance.
Second. I'll second. Makes sense? Okay.
Yes.
Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Tenth decision item, horse trail survey. Okay, now we're ready.
Right, now we're back.
So, the comment I made was that if we decide to do the survey, we'd be sure to make sure that metal posts are buried at the corner points.
The best.
This area where we're having all the problem, Might be, I don't know if the budget would hold for that or not, but would it be beneficial to put a fence along that property line?
Well, so here's some of my thoughts on this, right? One is the survey makes me nervous, but we're not jumping through hoop. We can't jump through financially, right? Because it's a complex, weird area. And so oh, great. Peter wants to update. So if we get a detailed survey of each one of these pieces, I think if it's tens of thousands of dollars, we got a good deal. Now, we could ask for something like a survey going around the outside or around this edge, the north and west edge, that's the controversial aspect, and see if a survey company might do that, right? So a fence is somewhat similar in that we could do partial fencing in maybe some controversial areas. So I think that's potentially viable as well. I also think the other idea of trail cams is viable. Now, I've been both reluctant to use them on several items where we've had issues in parks. They're also almost the only thing we can do for dumping we've had at the transfer station, graffiti we've had at some of the parks, things like this, because the cops won't do anything with it even if they catch some of the people on certain things, because they're a public park. It's different than getting on private land where they can just trespass you. Park, we don't have it gated off, fenced off, it's not fully enclosed. They can make a case that it's public land that they can be on. And so I've seen the county use a little bit with the illegal dumping of tires, have a trail cam set up, get someone on video. They also can't do anything with it legally or with the cops. And so they post it on Facebook and they're like, hey, we would like this person to stop dumping tires on our land. And it essentially socially embarrasses the person. And so we've put up some trail cams in places. We just haven't fully used them like that to try to limit some of this damage. We have people that dump deer carcasses in the cemetery. We've had that a few times in Twin Lake, things like that. So a lot of drug use. I knocked down the drug use at the Twin Lake Cemetery by driving through it in the middle of the night a bunch of times in my first year. And then I started going somewhere else. And so we'll try to tackle it in different ways. Some of these things are just odd because if you can just talk to the person and you're kind of on the same page or there's a simple misunderstanding, maybe you can just resolve it. But a lot of times it's kind of not. And then it's difficult to know exactly what to do. And so the trail cams, no big deal budget wise. Justin can just do that now. The fencing could obviously be, especially limited fencing, could be incorporated into a budget proposal. And then the survey could as well. So, and then Justin has to just go get a bunch of quotes and everything and have them ready for you.
May I ask a question?
Up to Randy.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So these are all little plots, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if we just had the one in question surveyed?
It's possible.
I mean, I think that would save substantial amount of money because it is not beyond me to not realize that it is a lot of money. It's a lot of
So
money.
the map, we're not even close to the private land, the trail. You're 2 lots from, you got one whole lot plus the other one. Who's the person, the one on the small lot in the corner, or is it Robert Henschel?
No, it's the Amber and Brian, those ones.
They're 2 lots, they're a full 2 lots away from where the horse trail is drawn.
Are you on Onyx?
Is Onyx wrong?
May I approach the? Okay, so
You're our
this is,
first guest we've ever had.
okay, so this is what I did when I went. I tracked my trail. And so the what they have for the
So
actual.
this is not,
We-
the trail actually goes up all that
All
close.
the way up, yep.
Why not back it off so that you're not going all the way up?
Well, because
Extend it
They're
more.
trying to connect up to the bridge.
We want to keep-
Oh,
But you're still on Dalton Township property.
yeah, it's all Dalton Township, yeah.
So, you guys, this is what I tracked and I wrote.
So in this little area right there.
That's their property.
Right. Yep, and right here in the middle, We call this actually the pretzel trail. This is where they put that big chunk of metal.
Yeah,
Saying that
Yeah, and that's,
this
that
trail
could
goes
really,
all the
that
way
could get you in a lot of trouble.
up to here,
right.
so that it's got
Trying to get
connection.
enforcement.
Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think it might be
So,
simply a case
guess
that
the
they don't
question
know where their
is-
property line is. When
Where's
they
the
think the horses are coming on their property,
from
which
a
they're not.
particular property on that, are they thinking that
I don't know what
people are
they're thinking.
encroaching upon their property,
I mean,
which is not their property, or what's the pushback? That's what I'm trying to get clarification.
welcome to my world. Equestrians, I don't know why, but we just want a safe place to ride.
But where's the threat?
Exactly. Where is the threat? We're not a threat.
They're throwing stuff in the trail and
So
It's the
we're dealing with-
homeowners.
We're dealing with trail upkeep, maintenance?
no,
No,
with
Vandalism.
vandalism,
Yeah.
yes.
vandalism from
To the
somebody.
trail.
To the trail, yep, there's a big metal plate in the middle of the pretzel that I just showed you guys. There's trash. They have a huge hole that they dug, that they put brush over, right up over a hill and right on the trail. We have to go off the trail to avoid it.
So they're sending a message that whatever you're coming through,
Knock it off, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Prevent-
even way back at the actual marker where the trail is, before I broke off and went up in that spot, they're cutting trees down and taking the signs down from
They're doing
that are, yeah, because they don't want,
public land.
yeah.
And we can't get anybody to do anything about it because it's Dalton Township property and we'd have to press charges.
You'd have to do something different than press charges.
Yeah, catch them and
Yeah.
have the evidence
I
and
would
then
have to
press
make a
charges.
citizen's arrest or something. I don't know what you would actually have to do to try to make something happen. It's extremely unlikely. Just like, so similarly, we have homeless people come across the highway there and camp. We've had that a little bit in the horse trail, more on the other side of the highway and whatnot, on our land as well. And I mean, you know, the police will respond a little bit, but mostly not. We've taken stuff out of there before. It's not a thing that much happens with. It's not much to be done.
There is some activity going on though. Jen and Wally just told me this. This is the rest stop right here. There is a trail from the rest stop that goes up into here. I have not been able to get there to assess it, but they have seen a woman with children coming out of there.
That's what I mean. What are you gonna do with it? Right? You could get rid of the park, then it wouldn't be your issue. Other than that, it's not obvious.
Just a question on the survey, are there any other parks that have any other issues like that? Like, while we're surveying one, is there any other, like, just a section, is there?
Oh, just like like
The survey company, yeah, any other boundary?
We don't have a particular boundary dispute that jumps to mind. Heather already had a survey done on Oakland Cemetery off of Russell for where they back up to Nugent. We don't have any issues with Nugent. I've worked really good with both the president and the vice president of operations on stuff there. But she wants to do some things and wanted to make sure that we keep the cemetery in the cemetery.
Got it.
So we already had some a survey there, and I think nothing else jumps to mind. There's other places where we could have disputes, and there have been historical disputes, but nothing active.
Now, we got an agenda item coming up for simple discussion. But it's regarding replatting. And this might be a part of that replatting is then it simplifies your boundary a whole bunch.
I could. Yeah, that's a big project.
But I don't want to get into detail on that right now. It's an
Till we get to that one.
discussion item.
I think probably on this. And I know Justin has it as a decision item, which is good. You gotta push stuff forward, and you guys don't meet that often, so you don't want to push stuff down the road too far. And the budget is coming up, and so it's something like how far. What work do you want Justin to do to a large extent? Do you want him to get quotes on any fence stuff? Do you want him to move forward with just like trail cams? Is that reasonable? Do you want him to get quotes on surveys? If you want him to get quotes on surveys, what? Do we want just like a couple of the properties that are kind of in dispute up there? Do we want something larger?
Or that is,
My thoughts, one, if you put up a fence and someone tear down the fence, then you have a real problem.
yes,
Because it's vandalism again, and now you have property damage. You do the camera, we finally catch the person who's been the obstacle. And that's right now is the mystery.
Yeah.
Who is the person or
Right.
persons who's
who's
doing
the
it?
bully?
That might be a better approach to clarify the issue. Then you get into negotiations or just neighborly
yeah.
behavior.
I'm the president of the Lakewood Garden Club, and we have a little pollinator garden in the park, and it's in a big open area, and we had vandalism problem. And I tried setting up a trail cam up in the tree where it wouldn't be obvious, they wouldn't vandalize the camera itself. Problem we have with it is the motion detector was random. It would leave over here, flutters, and it comes on and off. And then secondly, when we could see a person in there, it was the resolution was so much you couldn't tell who that person
It's
was.
the quality of the camera.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just have to get a nicer camera at that point.
you can see eyelashes.
What was that?
So there's a nice camera so you can see like the eyelash.
I thought if I had recommendation on one. I was
No.
right now.
You can get the one that sends to your phone too, then you don't have to worry about going out there. I like the idea of trying to catch the person. The other question is instead of a fence with, if it's legal or not, with like a wire or something like that, if to outline it. You know, if we got the lines established, right? But I don't want it to be a safety hazard or anything, but just an inexpensive way through the woods to say, hey, here is the line, like
Some kind of
hard stop for both sides.
Yes.
Type of deal. That would save a lot of money that way too.
Like a construction fence, you think?
Just a wire,
You
like,
gotta be
Well,
careful.
wire-
yeah, that's again, right, yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, I didn't know that side, I
No,
was
It's
thinking,
it's illegal to put something up that could hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Run into the woods.
Yeah.
It would have to be breakable.
okay,
And the people that just purchased the Fruitland Township plots, they just used, they took like a log and milled it, and it looks like a 2x4.
got it.
And I mean, something like that, maybe in the corner. I mean, I don't want to make the situation worse.
Right.
By,
Actually,
there's that balance, you
Right.
know? We don't want any issues. We just want to, like I said, we
Well,
want to say.
their intent is not, based on what you've said, their intent is not being nice to you. I mean, they're digging holes right in the trail to have you fall into. They're putting a metal plate, which I don't know what that's all about. It's just trash.
Trash.
So they're cutting down trees on not their property. And so, yeah, I think they're being malicious. So I would agree as well. I think we should maybe start with the camera, see who we're dealing with. And then,
Publicly shame them.
well, or take it to them and say, we've got you on
Yeah.
camera. Our next step is to go to the law.
Right.
Are you gonna stop this or not? I don't know.
And of course, they will deny it.
Sure.
Right.
Keep in mind, they will deny it.
Do you have any
What if it would stop?
documentation of the past? Things that didn't, like, have you taken pictures of the hole and with a date and time?
If I can go through all of my photos, yes, I have taken pictures.
Okay, I would, with to date time on it?
Yep.
Okay,
Everything is timestamped.
put that together, just in case we have to go there, because
Okay.
you need
Start
to
the
have
story.
evidence.
Okay.
Is there anyone from the township who could talk to people to just get a feel of what they're thinking?
Yeah, I can go talk to them.
Okay, is there a safety issue for yourself because of their past behavior or?
I don't mind safety issues anyway, so.
But if that could be the first step.
Yes. Yeah, and I think I've talked to them before with letters, and then we ended up having phone calls, and we just didn't resolve it. Although I think the activity went down
The activity did go
for a
down.
while at that point, and then it backed off. We're kind of fine. So what it doesn't, it seems to probably be a recurring thing.
Maybe the conversation is, you've made the agenda, you're officially on an agenda, like, that was step one, like, you're on notice, like, right? So like, help us help you.
People are watching.
Right, yeah, let's work through this together, you know?
But yeah, I can make contact with them and just see where they are and try to get some sort of reasonable understanding.
Yeah.
So, and then the township can obviously be out soon and stuff, but I think that would be a good way to start before we have Heather, Justin, or anyone else from the township.
I totally agree. We want
Let's
to
find the problem.
appeal to the better angels
Yep.
first.
Right.
Also, you want to educate them as to what we're trying to do, what is our responsibility to that, and how they interact with that. And we don't want to go any further, but we're experiencing some property damage to the township, and we have an obligation. And they have to come to reasons with those things.
I also
We can
think,
pursue.
sorry,
I'm done.
I'm sorry. I do that all the time. Another thing that maybe would be good to mention to them is if there's confusion about property lines, tell them, hey, we're more than happy to survey it to find out where it is. You know, if you think it's here and we think it's there, let's get it surveyed.
Yeah.
And we'll pay for it. If we do that corner and just figure out where we're at.
Yeah, I think, let's find the problem, like, let's, they obviously have some issue, something, let's see what that is. Oh,
Sounds good.
Alright, so do we need to make any kind of a motion here for action or?
For that, I don't think so, because I can have the conversation and we can start there, depending on how that goes. Well, even, I mean, not necessarily, depending on how that goes, Justin, you do the cameras.
Yep.
Because that doesn't do anything, we're just cameraing our own property. And then depending on how that goes, he can bring an update to your next meeting, kind of see what's needed then.
Okay,
So we should table this survey idea.
And I'll get a hold of Mel about where the spots are to put the cameras up. They can make 2 cameras.
My recommendation is at least one of your cameras is watching another camera. So that if they do find one of the cameras and they steal it, you hopefully have that documented.
I've got some pretty good ideas on where we can do that.
Good.
And like I said, my biggest concern is if we end up getting that expansion and allowed to move over and ride in those Lakewood, is that somebody's gonna get hurt because now you've got more people going through on horses. Is that gonna make them more angry? I mean, we have the right to go through. We have the right to be on township property. We have the right to be on the road. So I just want a safe spot for us.
Where are you looking to ride on the other side,
The Lakewood Club parcels right north and
north or south side?
north.
so I need a motion to table this item for next meeting.
You can either postpone it to the next meeting, you can table it, which leaves it at making the agenda discretion, or you can skip it.
We should postpone it.
Right.
Because we want to revisit this
Yeah.
again, the next meeting.
Does that need a motion?
If you want to specifically postpone it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I recommend that the topic horse trail survey be postponed to the next meeting as staff pursue engagement with property tenants.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Oh, thank you for caring. I mean, we just want places to ride and it's it's just getting smaller and smaller with the urban development and, you know, the ORVs now allowed on the state forest trails and we just want a place to ride.
Right.
All right, our next item is a discussion item, and the remainder are all discussion items. Planning Commission memo. And has everyone had an opportunity to read that memo?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Any comments on that? Do you have comments on that update us on it or what?
I mean, I think Steve gives a decent update in here. He knows a lot about it from the zoning administration aspect. And it's a problem area. It's been a problem area since these areas were platted in the early 1900s. And I think most people are probably aware, but I'm sure not everyone, that you used to get a little portion of Dalton Township land when you bought a newspaper subscription in Chicago. And so, yeah, it's weird, right? So we have one of the advertisements out there. It's in rough shape, but it's framed. And so it got really chopped up and weird, right? And sold the idea of like, hey, buy a newspaper subscription in the summer. You can come up here, throw up a tent on your own land. If you subscribe for a certain number of years, you'd have a bigger piece, then you could potentially build a little cabin or something. And these got planted out, and around the village, it got planted out like the village was going to expand with a high level of density. So you have all these non-existent but public access platted roads. And so the things are chopped up mess. Going back a century, the township has been getting property from those types of things where taxes weren't collected. Specifically, for instance, in 1987, I found in a newspaper article that 15,000 pieces of land came back to the township as a mix from the state and the county throughout the area. Now, in the 1990s, I think it was early or late 90s, somewhere in the 90s, the horse trail was made out of part of that. And then now we've been selling some off in the area, like Steve mentions in his report. And it's a little messy, just the way it's developed. It's developed originally designed and then developed organically. And so it's not ideal. Things have changed about how roads work and how zoning works since that time. And so the road commission would really like us to replat it. And so every time I talk to them about roads in the area, they're like, just replat it and do the thing. It's not going to be simple or easy because it's not all just township land. And so we can't it's not an internal process, it's also external. All the other little pieces of land, which there's people in Oregon and Hawaii and California and Florida and whatnot that own pieces of land, we're going to have to give notices to them. Some of them are estates. I think some people have inherited a piece of land where they're paying $7 a year in taxes for some tiny thing. If I get a $7 invoice for something and it seems legitimate, I probably pay it. I think some things will probably slip by for a couple of generations like that. And so all those people will have to be noticed. Have to be some hearings and whatnot. It's going to be a decent process. It legitimately should be done. Now, I didn't tackle it in the last 4 years. I had other priorities that I was working on. And this is going to be a beast of a process to try to sort out, but should at some point be done.
I'd like to comment on I live in the Village of Lakewood Club, and of course, we have that very same problem. And we have a area we call Section 6, which is mostly owned by the village. There's a few odd properties, like you say, that someone still owns and but they're talking about trying to do something along that same line. And there's one I think the village would really appreciate to be included in this discussion. And there's a possibility they might be included, would like to join in doing this effort. That's just my comments back to the zoning board.
And the reason it's coming up is, one, Steve mentions the sale of property. We are selling, like we have one developer, Leatherman, that bought a very large piece just south of the village. Essentially, he's trying to sort it out. He's trying to contact people that own little pieces inside of all the pieces he bought, try to buy up their pieces, see if he can sort those out. He's going to have to put in roads, run utilities, do all of that, go through the planning commission for a planned unit development, which you essentially create your own little zoning district. Those big buildings that are going in the business park, it's a planned unit development, ends up being its own special thing. So all of that's being worked on, but also it recently came up with another land request up by Goose Egg Lake, up by the Catalpa area, of another land request that was decently large on a piece that reasonably, because it's quite a bit of wetland too, so it's not that useful for development. And it was for a single family residential request that was uncertain anyways. Like, seems like it could make a nice walking trail. If we're gonna add any parks before we get rid of all of the land, then now would probably be a decent time to consider it. And if we're going to do that, and you probably should look at the replatting of the area as well. And so the replatting will go through the planning commission and the board, but it would highly affect potentially some of your projects and areas for parks as well.
When you end up replatting it, how does the township handle road construction standards? I know that there was an issue just south of Lakewood Road where the developer started in there but was putting in basically a 2-track road, and they got stopped by the township. And so on, couldn't issue any more building permits. So have you resolved that? So there's a road construction standard or anything like that that you follow?
There are, so it depends on if the road commission, as in the county road commission, has authority over it, and wants authority to a certain extent, and if they're requiring it to be brought up to a certain level. If they don't, then the township has certain authority over it and certain standards that it's supposed to be brought up to, but it depends on how many houses are going to be put in too. And so if you just have one house, it's a much lower standard, like essentially a very basic driveway, right? So you can have something that's not great for a single house, but if you have more places going in, then the standard goes higher, essentially. Once you get beyond, I think 3, it has to be fairly decent as far as it goes.
In other words, it's in writing someplace.
In the ordinances.
Okay.
Help me with this. Because we have this public land that is owned by the township, and it can be sold.
Yep.
Will staff advise us with this premium land that we should kind of reserve for parks and recreation?
Yeah, actually, so there's a couple items in this meeting of spots that we've kind of looked at of these might make sense as parks. They haven't been requested. Well, the one was kind of requested, and the township board said we'll probably hold back on that one. It's kind of weird anyway. It's not straightforward. That's that wetland area. Justin and I went and walked part of it. We did get a little lost, but we went and walked part of it. We've looked at a couple other little spots. So the trail ones on here on the agenda for the automobile trail, the River Russell Trail, and the Catalpa Trail.
Yeah.
Our discussion of those types of items. Of do we want to preserve this or not?
Excellent. It's better to reserve than to, once they're gone, they're gone.
Or not?
Right. So
And we've got,
let's protect our interests first.
we have a few parks. You know, we have 4 parks, and some of them are pretty small. We have 2 cemeteries. We have the horse trail. We have the bike trail. And we don't not have recreational areas in the township. But if later the township sold off all the woods and then wanted to rebuy some woods and put in a hiking trail, that becomes difficult to make feasible. Right now we have it. If we just want to say, let's put a hiking trail in here, it's relatively easy to do. We can chop down some trees, put it in a parking lot, with some dolomite and whatnot, probably upgrade maybe a little bit of a road, and then carve out a trail through the woods. So, and build boardwalks if we want. It can always get extensive. I've done a lot of hiking trails all over the country, a lot in Michigan, so it's very cool. So it can always get more extensive, but designating the land and starting on it is relatively easy. We essentially just need the Parks and Rec Committee to agree, and then the Township Board to agree. And then you're there.
The Village of Lakewood Club, they have in their master plan to put in, I believe, either bike trails or bike lanes. They're right now talking maybe bike lanes along Kenwood and Automobile. So it'd be Lakewood Road and Automobile would be where they would end. And they were thinking maybe someday the state and county would improve the bridge, Lakewood Road Bridge, to widen it so we'd have be able to run the trail over to get to the main trail. But we want, I'm sure they want to talk with the zoning board about somehow connecting up with what trails you talk about.
And the one that's an automobile is being planned or is an idea that's close to that property you're talking about. Or he's-
The automobile one is just south of where automobile comes south away from the village.
Right.
And we have one down in there just in a little spot is our one cell tower site right now. We have another one going in between the lakes, like 10 private ones in the township. But if you ever wonder where we live, it's there. And so that's right below where a development has occurred, and it's near where a large residential development is planned. Hundreds of houses over probably the next couple of decades. And so implementing a hiking trail there seems like it'd be reasonable. It could get some use because you'd have houses around it, that type of thing. Yeah, it's probably not the most desirable area to continue development. I mean, possible. If all the other houses sell, then I'm sure the land will be worth quite a bit. But that's, yes, you're right. That automobile one, the automobile trail, item number 12, is coming south off of automobile below the village.
Number 12.
Yeah, item number 12 on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So we want to move forward, not at this particular meeting, but at future meetings, to secure the land to come under the auspices of the Parks Board. We can do that.
You can. Yep. And so
At minimum cost too.
as a recommendation to the Board of Trustees.
Okay,
And I even think that it would make sense if saying what are our action steps on these basically, right? Are like, do we want to get surveyed? Maybe necessary, may not be necessary, depending on how close to the edge you want to make a trail, or a parking lot. Do we want to get quotes for putting in a parking lot? Do we want to get quotes for putting in a trail? What action steps do we want to take on these? And therefore, in February, what do we want to recommend as a budget to put for the board to put in March? Because you got to remember, then it's a year before you get around to the next budget season. And I've told Justin, he has to be thinking a year out all the time on money.
The other thing is the way it's currently platted, the north-south roads have only 25 foot of right of way. And then the east-west have 40 foot of right of way. 40 foot is doable, 25 foot is really narrow. So that's where either you gotta set aside a lot on one side of it to make it go through, so you got 50 feet to work with. There's a lot 25 foot wide. Or the other possibility is just replat the whole land.
Well, and for trails, that would end up being moot because you don't need to drive cars through the trails.
Right. But then
Before development, it's an issue. And for that, it makes sense to develop every other road and then face the houses the other way and bring the utilities in the back. That's probably what the developer is going to do.
So you're looking at keeping the plat as it is and just vacating, or not vacating, but making utility right of ways and then road right of ways every other. That makes sense.
Well, it depends because there's a lot of things in motion that require a lot of agreement from a lot of people. And so it's difficult. And, on that stuff, if you want stuff to happen, you can't stop. Otherwise, it'll never happen because and so, on this type of stuff, the one developer that we have moving, he has to move. He has a bunch of capital. He's spending a lot of money on the amount of time it sits there. He's about a year into paperwork now. He probably has another year to go on paperwork. Right? So it's probably about 2 years of paperwork before you start building. And so he has to move forward with a planned unit development like he's doing.
What page are you looking
Well, this is just the automobile trail. It's item number 12.
at? Yeah, okay. Oh,
So, but like with ours,
like.
With ours, it's a similar thing, because if you wanna,
Sorry.
if you wanna wait, it's the 1.64 miles. I just theoretically put some dots on the map, so that you could see potentially what length of a trail could occur, just so we kind of knew what we were looking at. Otherwise, difficult to scale around unless everyone wants, scaling rulers and stuff. And so with something like that, it's like if we wanted to wait to do any of the parks or move forward with anything until everything is replatted, it's difficult because you don't know how long you're going to wait. It's not going to be 6 months. It could be 6 years. It could be 60 years, right? So, it could be a while. And so I would say if you want one of the parks to occur, I would get some action steps and push it as recommendations to the board, and it wouldn't hold back too much. Now, if the board is like, we want to aggressively move on the replatting and try to get that done, if we could get replatting done in that area in a year, I would be impressed. I would be very impressed. And so if it gets done in 2 years, I think that would probably be reasonable. And if you can't get it done in 2 years, I'm not sure it would occur, because it's moving too
Parties
slow.
involved, the county and then the state
It's a
and
beast.
courts.
Yes. And the other property owners.
Yeah. You're looking at 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, which at that point, because you're going through multiple administrations, it realistically probably just doesn't happen, right? So it just dies somewhere. Someone doesn't put it on the next agenda. And so at that point, it's like you could put one of these trails in for a park, just like we have parks now, without having the replatting completely done. So you gotta kind of have multiple things moving at once because you don't know what's going to stop. But if everyone waits on everyone else, then nothing occurs.
Mr. Chairman, I really would like to see us move forward in securing those 3 trails and recommend that to the township board, our intent.
Which 3 trails? The automobile?
Automobile, river, and Catawba.
That's a motion.
That's a motion.
I have a second.
A second.
Okay. The motion is to recommend to the board that they move forward with creating the automobile trail, the River Russell Road Trail, and the Catalpa Trail.
Names could be changed later. We just labeled them for convenience.
And it was seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Who seconded?
He did.
Oh, I second, I thought.
Yes.
Any opposed?
I was going to oppose, but I'll go with it. But my concern is cost.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is cost. The comment I was going to make before we finalize this is that Catalpa is already there. There's a park there. And Justin and I went out last Friday and he showed me around. So I kind of had an understanding of where it was. In my opinion, just from what I saw, we didn't go to the river in Russell, but out of the 3, Catalpa is, from what I've seen, is the one that is out away from everything. We don't have the freeway alongside of it, which automobile does, correct? So anyway, that's my thought is, I don't know that I don't know that I like the idea of trying to tackle all 3. I'm thinking maybe we take one and try to do one. Anyway, we can throw it to the board and see what the costs are, and then we can make a decision from there.
Well, and I would say this: if the motion is to set it aside, and then it's like, well, what are we actually moving on? So, especially setting up like the budget for 2025. Yeah, I mean, trying to do all of them to a large degree in a single year would be a lot, probably budget wise and just time wise. So, but to say, all right, we want to do these steps this year, and then these steps next year, and then these steps the following year. on these 3 trails, something like that could be reasonable.
And then, again, we're just recommending to them, it doesn't.
To set aside for future
Yes,
All
development.
right, I'm with that.
that was the intent of the motion,
That's fine.
because we want to secure it before developers come in
Right.
and say, okay, we want to take this.
Yeah, the motion itself doesn't spend any money. It
No.
just sets it aside.
And it puts it in the court of the township board.
Right.
They have a better picture of costs and things of that nature. But at least as our committee, we're saying we're trying to protect public lands.
Right.
I agree.
This would
Okay,
be
we're
our,
good.
part of our 5-year plan.
So we are on item number 15, budgetary wish list.
It is Christmas, right?
Thanks, to
Justin.
Justin, yeah. He put together some of the costs there. I worked with him on there. I put together the initial table to work with on that and laid out that. It's a spreadsheet. We can add, subtract. We can prioritize if we want over there, and once I put the numbers in, I can fix the orders around. So Justin, can you talk to them a little bit about what we learned? Or did they see? Did you see all the video on pickleball? What's involved with putting in pickleball court?
That I had sent, did I send you all the video on pickleball? That was a couple months ago. Okay. So, part of the reason why I wasn't able to get ton of quotes is I was really trying to get the basketball court and pickleball, if we were to do pickleball court, learn a little bit more about that. So I reached out to Kyle Kracher, if I'm saying that right, at Spartan Sports, and talked to him quite a bit. Randall had also talked with him while I was sitting there one day. It'll be about $100,000 to tear out the asphalt and put new concrete and paint it. Regardless of what option we do, it'd be roughly $18,000 to $20,000 to resurface the court every 10 years. So that's something that we need to think of for every 10 years. We can pretty much count on spending about $20,000 to resurface it.
If we resurface it, then it just remains a tennis court and
Yeah, the tennis court, basketball court. Yeah.
And then if the idea is that maybe the pickleball has to be a separate court because
Yeah.
you don't have the tear out costs. It can be built right.
Yep. And for the basketball court and tennis court, they could do a resurface the right way for about $50,000 using a mesh and a crack patch. Reason why we can't do that for a pickleball court, to my understanding, is with the filling up the cracks that are currently there. It basically makes a dead spot for the pickleball. So that's the reason why it wouldn't be good for pickleball, but for tennis and basketball, that'd be okay. I also could order 10 to 15 gallons of this acrylic crack patch to at least get the cracks smaller. And surface cracks will come back, and it won't hinder the future repairs. That would be, I believe, a lot cheaper than any of the other options to at least try to get everything in a better condition than what it is without spending a ton. Snap together tiles that Spartan Sports was talking about, I believe they make that stuff. No, I'm sorry. They'll bubble up. If we do go about getting a couple pickleball courts, he said that 2 of them would be a fine number. We don't have to go and get like 10 pickleball courts because people can play in about 10 courts, about each of them. There's a lot of information, and I don't know why I didn't have a lot of it on paper.
This is gonna affect our budget. We do have another meeting before the budget. So can we put together a better listing and description of what you're talking about, and we can then have a discussion on that?
Yeah.
I would say that going into next meeting, essentially what Justin probably needs is some sort of priority. What can be emphasized for getting quotes and things. So getting quotes is a very normal part of the government staff. Some people don't particularly emphasize getting quotes, especially to small governments, because the government's so difficult to work with. Approvals have to go through multiple boards. It takes a very long time. And so I found governments at Blue Lake, I recommended them, the company that ended up doing the remodel, because they couldn't get quotes for anyone to do a remodel on their building. So, and the check's gonna be good, right? Because it's backed by tax, but still. Sometimes difficult to get quotes.
Sometimes because the reason they are hesitant on giving you quotes, and the term is quote, is that by the time you get to it, material costs and labor costs have gone up, and now the quote's no good. So when I was working in the engineering department trying to do budgeting, I would ask for budgetary estimates from them.
Yeah.
And that way they were more comfortable with that. And that's why it's important to put a date when the budgetary estimate is, because then when you go to actually budget it, you can add an inflation factor to that date.
And so you essentially have like a cost benefit analysis that has to occur here, because it's like, all right, pickleball court, we have no evidence of use of that. It's not like tennis court gets used. It's not like we have pickleballers out there. If it's a $100,000 project, that is larger than maybe all your other projects combined, right? Like basketball, we get some people that have tried to play basketball out there. They've been around play at times, but it's occurred. The roof on the dugouts, we've got baseball activity out there for sure. We've got teams. So we see stuff for sure there. The playgrounds are up for moving on. There's kids out there. I mean, Justin and I have gone out there before when there's no place at all. And there's still a parent out there with a kid trying to play on something. So that gets used. Picnic area every now and then, I think lightly, not a ton. Catalpa, equestrian gets used a decent amount. Catalpa, I think, gets used more than people think. It's kind of tucked away in its own little corner, but it's common to actually go over there and there's some people there hanging out, some kids playing, stuff like that. We've already improved the playground, so that's pretty decent. Again, with like the idea of tennis courts, not sure if I've ever seen those actually get used. The basketball courts, yes, I've seen those get used. The boat launch at Catalpa, don't see that get used much, usually for kayaks when it does. But like Justin said before, it's a good test case for the boat ramps on North Lake, Middle Lake, and West Lake, because if we can fix a boat ramp for a decently cheap economical price, then we can help those other 3 in the coming years on erosion, because we get a lot of complaints on erosion. It's a pain. The walk-in trail is a legitimate concern. It specifically says Padley Park on here, but we got the other 3 that we just discussed too, because people go for walks in the woods on private land, on township land. We encounter issues with it. Sometimes there's homeless people, but sometimes there's just people walking their dogs, going for a walk. So it is a use that's out there. They don't really complain about it, so it's not very noticeable unless you go out into the woods and you're walking around. But if you talk to them, there's people just walking the walk. So it's in the erosion at Padley Park has been an issue. Justin put in some rocks, and we've gotten compliments on that, on helping slow down the erosion. It's still eroding around it a little bit and whatnot, but so it's kind of like a cost benefit analysis of like some of these things, like the roofs. on the basketball, or the baseball areas, I think it probably won't be that much. Even if Justin's rough estimate is way off on here and, you know, it's 100% off and it costs twice as much or 3 times as much as $500, it still probably makes sense to be like, do that, you know, get a quote, get whatever you need, do it. The pickleball court, it's like, if we could do some sort of super cheap one or something, maybe. You know, the basketball and the tennis courts, that is not cheap at $31,000. So it's kind of like, what do you want him to hit hard as far as getting stuff together for you to make decisions on, and what do you want to push further down the priority list?
I got a question on, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do we have 2 different budgets we're working on with here, a capital budget and a maintenance budget, or is it all lumped together as one?
Well, your budget would be lumped together to a certain extent, I guess, and as in you're just recommending items to go into the parks budget. So, but the actual GLs in the general ledger is laid out. And so we have maintenance budget, we have the parks budget, with a few different line items for repair of equipment, that type of thing, capital expenditures, like your major, like if you're putting in a pad, like for a pickleball court, that would be a capital expenditure. And so we have some things line itemed out.
So,
Would it be any better, go ahead.
no, I'll come in.
Would there be any benefit to our suggesting that be a capital item versus a maintenance item?
I don't think so. So the GLs end up being very important for tracking our finances and managing everything and keeping track of the budget, the quarterly adjustments, all of that type of stuff. But in the end, it's coming from the general fund, so it's coming from the same fund. Now, we do have certain other funds. We have special assessments for weed treatments on lakes. We have the cemetery fund, that's separate. We have the sewer fund, that's separate. So the separate funds end up being important. But everything you're going to deal with is going to come from the general fund. And so which GLs they go under are important paperwork-wise, but it doesn't actually affect the finances in any different way.
Chairman, just get some clarification. The 24 budget was for $28,200. Is that correct?
I'm not certain.
I thought I read that somewhere in some of our paperwork.
That does not seem unreasonable as a number. I think I probably did put the number somewhere in there.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's towards the
So it would just be a safe assumption that we are looking at about a $20,000 budget.
I would not say it that way. So because it's a dynamic, relatively small organization, I don't think the budget from last year has to set the budget for the following year. Obviously, I'm going to be off the board, so I'm not necessarily making the specific recommendation. But what I've really tried to emphasize is we don't want to work according like a normal bureaucracy where it's like you need to spend your budget so that you say that you need more. And I've really emphasized this in our internal departments, like if you have to buy something, buy it to make the job more efficient, more effective. But if you don't need to, you don't need to spend up to your budget. You can tell me that, listen, this year I'm going light. We're going to be $20,000 under budget, but next year I'm going to have a big purchase. So we're going to have to bump it up. That's no problem. We can have that communication without just being listed and saying like, hey, I spent my whole budget. I need more for next year. And so if we say we're down, fire is a good example. And Alan speaks on his own. I don't want to speak for him, right? But it's not every year that you're buying a fire truck. So the years that you're not buying a fire truck versus the years you're buying a fire truck, your capital expenditures are a world apart. And I think especially for parks, it can be that way to a certain extent too. If you're buying a place at one year, you know, your capital expenditures might be way higher than another year. You're like, listen, we're putting in a trail that's costing $1,000, $1,200 a mile or something to cut through the woods. It's not going to add up to that much. If we're putting in like a boardwalk, well, it's going to be a lot.
Right, but based on your comment earlier, I mean, our budget, we talk about pickleball courts, $100,000. We don't, that's probably not going to be realistic.
If I was sitting on the board, I would just nix that. I'd be like, why are you even?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question would be about the equestrian natural area picnic area. So you may not be aware of this, but it's proposed, or well, a suggestion is that we create a picnic area located in an open area near the center of the park where two trails cross. So my question to you would be, would that be used?
Well, Justin and I kind of did something like that already this year. We had a.
We can put done on that?
Absolutely, check it right off.
There was one of those blocks put out there for,
There's 2 mounting blocks put out there, a picnic table, and then I had a local equestrian that donated another brand new picnic table. So Justin was able to.
That's deep inside the park. Oh, wow.
There's one picnic table deep in the park, then one out at the parking lot.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna put done on that one then.
and that's a project like that is cheap enough. It's like, if Justin has time, and that's what we discussed, like, if you have time, just do it, and you can just do it on my authority at that point. Obviously, we're still creating this board and everything. So, but some of the bigger things we wouldn't authorize like that, obviously.
So we need to update this thing to this spreadsheet. When you get something done, we need to highlight somewhere that it goes completed.
I like done things.
Well, I think based on what Jeff said, we should go down this list and decide what are we serious about and what are we gonna push off.
And easy wins.
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys can't see that great up there, can you? So this is the budget, and this is publicly available on the website. If you go to Step 5, the budget's up there from the previous years. And so this is the recreation in parks area with the GLs included. This is the original budget, so this didn't include quarterly adjustments, which are different. They're up here, but they're on different pages. And so the recreation and parks itself, for parks construction, we went pretty light this year as opposed to other years. Parks construction, I had 10,000, equipment and repairs, I had 10,000, utilities, 2,200, miscellaneous, 1,500. Reese Puffer School, that sports and shorts program through Reese Puffer at Twin Lake Park for 4,500. And then in building and grounds itself, which is up here a little ways, we have completely different things. So, and one of the major shifts that we made was instead of going for a $26,000 tractor, because our tractor is like a decent residential tractor, but it doesn't move some of the stuff that would be nice for us to be able to move. But instead of doing that, Justin requested that $26,000 be moved into the parks budget, which we did that. And that's part of covering that cost for the play set to go in.
The master plan does show projected Parks and Rec budget. And for 2024, 2025, they have basically $45,000 is what they're showing here. And like you say, it can flex a little bit.
Correct. When Steve made that, he talked to me about that. And it's like, I don't think the budgeting necessarily has to work that way. As far as planning wise, going through a bureaucratic checklist, it makes a lot of sense to take it and add a few percent to it each year and say this makes sense. In reality, I think the organization should be probably a little more dynamic and judgmental than that. Right? Like good judgment is more important than sticking with that number. But in the end, your recommendation will go before the board. And so if the board is like, we're in financial difficulty, which we're not at all. We're in financial difficulty, we're cutting parks expenditures. It's gone. And the board in previous years did that after the sewer fiasco in 06 for sewer at Whitehall and everything. I mean, everything was cut to the bone. It's part of why some of our stuff is falling apart into disrepair. We're on good financial standing now. We're going to go bankrupt in 2026. We're in good financial standing. So I don't think it's bad for you to tackle it aggressively. And then for the board to say, all right, we need to curtail it a little bit if need be. But it's reasonable to shoot for that number or somewhere around that number.
Okay, so for the next year, the projection is 4,600 or 46,000. So that's basically what we're working with in doing our budget here.
So getting back to priorities, I mean, I think the roof repair on the dugout's a done deal, right? Everybody would agree with that?
Yes.
Changing the surface in the playground area, done deal at Beagle? I mean, that's important.
Yep.
So I'm sorry, if I'm taking over, I apologize.
It's discussion.
I almost would like to hear from Justin, because he's out there and sees this stuff.
Right.
What's your thoughts? What would be your priority? We just said go on a couple.
Yep, I completely agree. My plan's been to get the dugouts on the roof done. The playground, that's definitely gonna be done because the playground's going in, we're gonna have new things done. The new mulch. I'd really like to get the basketball court and tennis court in better condition. What that looks like, I don't know whether we want to have brand new stuff put in. I really think I would like to try to go with that route of filling in that crack myself. It's gonna be a couple really crappy days. But I would rather do that and try to make it better than what it is.
So the quote is to redo it.
So yeah, that quote is to
It was to fill in all the cracks and resurface the whole thing.
yeah.
And paint it.
What
Your
was involved
description
with the
said you're
re?
gonna grind it all off
Yeah, that wasn't
and put an inch and a half of new asphalt on.
yeah, it wasn't to grind it off for that quote. That's just where I put that in. I need to do better about building spreadsheet stuff here. So bear with me there. Sorry.
Okay.
What does the 31,000 pay?
31,000 was to do like a resurface. I believe that was to fill in the cracks and put some paint on. And I think that could do that cheaper than 31,000 to fill in the cracks.
All concrete?
That is, yes, concrete's the one that's got the rock, correct?
That concrete is cement.
Cement. And I think when I've been out there,
Can it be
It's
ground
asphalt.
down flat and then resurfaced with something that would that would last for a few years? I mean, that's that question.
Yeah,
We know
Maybe
anybody?
that's something we need to get an updated quote on.
and better description.
yeah. And if you guys know anybody that can do any of that, please let me know, because I've had a really hard time finding this quote. Like I said, I had talked with Spartan Sports quite a bit. They do the painting, and then anytime that concrete work, they'd send me somewhere to get a quote, and I had no responses.
So we've got the equestrian natural area picnic thing done. All right, so
Yeah.
just to start over with a win. Right? And then we've got the dugouts due.
Yep.
We've got the playground surface area due. We've got resurfacing the courts. Find out more. Get a good quote. Get good numbers. Get a clear description of what the work would be for those numbers.
Right.
Then also at Catalpa Park, the parking lot drainage issue there. We've talked with the road commission a couple different times, and I was originally thinking that we could move that parking lot there and create like a rain garden, but I wanted to get a hold of the road commission because it's been a back and forth battle with them and us for quite a few years. We'll raise the parking lot up so it no longer floods, then all the water goes in the road. So I wanted to work with them. They recommended 1 to 2 things. Putting a ditch alongside our park to where all the water will run into that. And or raise the road up and do like a gravel road upgrade through that area.
Problem I saw with the ditch solution you come into the park and you're going downhill, then you come around and then there's a little bit of a mound of dirt between where we're parking and where the lake is. So you gotta cut through the park with the ditch in order to get it to drain positively over to the lake.
Can't drain it into the lake.
Yeah, I think it'd just be like a ditch to catch the, but I don't even know what that looks like yet. That's just what.
And right now the parking area is in the low spot. That's why I was saying make that a rain garden and move the parking lot over to another location a little higher.
Yep, I really like that idea. Then when I talked to the road commission about this, when they proposed, like I said, about the ditch and raising the road up, so. What to do about that?
Get more information.
Maybe if you want to talk to the road commission again, let me know and I'll try to be there with you to talk to them.
Alright, we had just reached out to them. I'll see if I can speak to you in one of the emails. God, that's gonna be gone soon.
That was my job before. It's drainage.
So as I look at this, Beagle has 3 categories of needs. We have Tava has 3 categories of needs and Padley has 2. Justin, when you're approaching this through your work, you're prioritizing things, you have like 1, 2, 3 need to be addressed right away. 3, 4, 5.
So I think Beagle's the one that I've been working at the most, trying to prioritize there.
Okay.
And from there, like the drainage issue, I'd like to get that going. Hadley Park, be nice to get that going, but it's not high on the priority list. For the Hadley Park erosion issue, there is a grant that is possibly going through about like wildflowers. So the thought was to have wildflowers put at the bottom of that rain culvert to help stabilize that water runoff.
Is there a cost with that?
I don't believe that's going to be any cost to us whatsoever.
Okay, so if we go back and look at things that's gonna really cost us, for example, the repair of a roof, that's important.
Yep.
Also improving the drainage, that's important, that's gonna be costly too. Those are some things that we wanna give high priority to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sounds like we might wanna take advantage of the boat launch too, right? Cause that sounds like the one.
The boat launch, if we can figure out how to do it, essentially we control it as a test case.
Yep.
If we can make a boat ramp that controls erosion decently well for under $10,000, then we can replicate that at the other 3 boat launches. That has a high impact. On Catalpa alone, it doesn't have a high impact, but it also means if we mess it up, it's okay.
Right.
It's why I put in for the state for the license for the Catalpa one. It took a year for that to come through Eagle.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking
And
because
now
of
that
the
we got
process. Yeah, we have the permit. Let's-
Now we have the permit,
Yeah,
so it's good to put that on the priority.
It would be good, and if we can do a boat ramp for under $10,000, but decently control the erosion, well, then we can do the other 3 boat ramps over the next couple of years relatively easily.
Right.
So my question would be, Justin, do you feel comfortable from the board giving you the kinds of guidance you need when you go before the township board to advocate for this?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Give him the kind
Do
of
we have-
guidance that he
Do we have
needs.
information on that boat launch?
Yeah, it's further down the packet.
Is there anything else you need from us to do a better sales job to the next level?
In the meantime, I don't think so. I'm still trying to kind of learn exactly what this committee entails and how we all work together. You know what I mean?
We're working on it.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Work in progress.
Yeah, and I think the preparation, so, because in the same way that you're not doing it every day, you're not seeing this stuff every day, but you're trying to make an important decision. So what you need to be able to see in front of you to make the decision, Justin has prepared to give to you. It's the same thing with the board, right? And so it's like, what do I actually need to see to make a decision with something that I haven't walked the park, 2 times a week for the last few months? And so it's almost, not exactly because you're decision makers too, but it's almost like good practice in itself.
Sure.
For doing a rep essentially before going before the board.
Yeah.
But this budget season is going to be coming up very quick. So
What I would like to see for our next meeting is, one is to rework the project descriptions, and maybe change the names so as appropriate, on the ones that we've already talked about today, in particular, focus on those. And then work on getting a better price of what entailed in that description.
yeah, if you can get hard descriptions and hard numbers for your February meeting, and then depending, because you could have 2 meetings in February there. So Justin's February might basically be just like ice and snow, right, which is a major priority, and budget.
Right.
And then, because if you can get those 2 sorted in that month, then, you're good. So, but it'll be on a decent learning curve there with a hard deadline because the budget is getting approved sometime in March.
Can we, if we get this budget worked out, Justin, you and I work it out, can we send that out to the committee before our meeting, like in the next month or something like that?
You can send things out earlier. So the only thing you want to make sure that you don't do is have everyone reply to all. Then you have an open meetings act violation. Other than that, you can send things out earlier. And we try to get the packet out about 5 days in advance is what I try to give enough room. So when you go before that, I found that you always have last minute stuff that tries to creep in, which is a difficulty. And if you go less than that, I don't think that's reasonable for trying to review any of the information.
Yeah. The thing that I'm thinking is I'd like to get it out so that all of you have a chance to say, we missed something. Can you look into that? That's what I'm looking for.
Sure. That is possible.
All right, we're done with the budgetary wish list. Beagle, talk about Beagle and Pickle Court. Talk about Beagle's Skate Park. What about Beagle's Splash Pad?
That was my silly idea last time of just trying to make Beagle different. If we want, instead of the, I don't maybe there's nothing to do both, but Malawi just did the new pickleball courts and all of that stuff, so all of that's within the area. So it's a splash park, and it didn't look crazy expensive. I mean, I didn't price out all the things. I mean, great detail there. Everything we'd have to maybe understand what one of the pictures looked like. Is it 30 grand, 40 grand? I don't know. But it seemed like a lesser. But then you got the water too, which is obviously a factor. But that's where that one came from. Was just an idea to be different. Give more people there.
So we didn't actually talk about the skate park yet, but the thought here was first, the skate park, if we were able to get grants, so that's kind of the reason I want to put in there, if you guys want to be open to that. And then after that, splash pad.
I didn't see the skate park.
It was just writing about the skate park.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And there's a potentiality of a $25,000 grant that Justin found.
Oh, okay.
And that wouldn't cover all of it, and even before we would get awarded the 25,000 for it, we'd have to do some kind of like fundraising, whether it's us or somebody else in the community does fundraising for it to get to that point. More or less, just wondering if it's something that would be a possibility, if you will. But then moving forward, with the splash pad, I had gotten a lot of.
I got one question, the, skate park for Beagle, there, is there a particular reason why Beagle and one of the other parks?
I think, well, one, Beagle has a fair amount of room.
Yeah.
And two, it probably already has the heaviest traffic and most visitation. So I think probably accessibility would probably make the most sense.
Not far enough to have it.
That's best parking area.
Yeah, because if you go, I mean, like obviously Padley, you can't take it. Duffield is technically a lease from the gun club. It's a 99-year lease going out to the 2060s. It's not a heavily used baseball area, but it probably doesn't make sense to do a massive investment. Maybe a minor investment on a leased area. And then Catalpa is kind of its own little foresty thing, but would seem odd with a skate park, I guess.
In the Beagle Pavilion roof, this would be, right now you're doing repairs, but you want to re-roof it, right?
Yes.
That is different than the one on the budget, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the dugouts on the budget.
Yeah. So that's something that's gotta be put into our budget wish list.
And like what I had said, I went and repaired some of the shingles, and the ones I repaired, they're still in decent condition. It's not like. They'll have to be done within the next couple of years. Whether we just keep on patching it or we just put a new roof on there.
We haven't gotten any estimates on that though.
I got couple quotes, one of them in writing, both of which are a little $5,000. Yep. And that is in the packet, one of the quotes.
Oh, great. That was just for that pavilion roof too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, okay, but I'm trying to add something.
How many square?
I don't know.
That you on the bike path? Hey, Jeff, that's something. That you on the bike path?
Oh, yeah, well, there's kind of, there's another organization, a bike organization that operates in the county, not part of the county, operates in the county that is actually organizing this. And so they wanted to put it along the bike path somewhere, which runs through multiple municipalities, but Dalton Township is one of them. It's in memory of Tom Lindrup, who did a lot as the Friends group for the bike path, who recently passed away. And so I had inquired because we have some water and sewer that runs along part of our bike trail. And so with the crossroad of McMillan, am I correct on that, Justin? Yes, McMillan Crossroad. They inquired about that corner, that location, and there is some water and sewer there. The county recommended that we not place it on top of water and sewer, not because it would hurt any of the lines, but because if they ever have to dig them up, they have to move your statue. But there's still enough room to put statue in a different spot there. None of this funding would come from the township, at least now. It's not proposed, obviously. Almost no one rejects money. If the township ever wants to send people money, never heard of it coming back, right? So, but as of now, when we've talked to Rob, who's heading this project, they are working on raising their own funds and going through their own request for proposals, their own RFP process for that statue art project. I'd updated the board on it, so the board is aware as well. And so you're aware there might be something for the township to approve, because if it's going to the township, obviously, even if we're not paying for it, the township still has approved it going on our property. Not sure where we are in the time frame on that. They're working on getting proposals as of now, as far as I understand.
Yep, I just reached out to them a couple weeks ago, and they have been reaching out to artists. They're all busy at the moment, and they'll have more talks by after the new year. And I think that we may have skipped the Hadley Park area of the budget for the boat launch.
Maybe you could talk about
Yeah,
that?
so thank you.
Oh, yeah, I thought we already discussed it.
We discussed it a little bit, but not
Oh,
in detail yet. So we got the permit for that, which kind of started the whole thing.
That's a custom map designed by me.
Yep. And just. Here.
Took a year, but the approval came through. Okay.
Yep. And Randall was talking about something called GeoWeb. I never had heard about this until then and looked into it, and it looks like a pretty cool system where it's basically like a thing to contain all the dolomite, basically. Like great.
it's a high density polyethylene that's put together and like an accordion, and it spreads out, and then you stake it down and you fill in the spaces in between with stone, and it keeps the stone in place.
So I did get an estimate on this GeoWeb stuff, not the actual installation, but the materials itself. And that was
$3,354.
a quick thing.
I bet. Rounded that off. So never round down. So that's just for materials. We don't know what the work would cost.
And you still got the stone too, buy the stone.
And that would be either we could try to do that in-house, keep it underneath that $10,000. I've never dealt with it before, but could happily try learning. Or we could get quotes on somebody doing it outside of in-house. And the next portion of the packet is just some information about the GeoWeb that they had sent me. All interesting stuff.
Obviously, it makes something makes sense with the permit. I wonder if they have any like past clients we could talk to. If there's anyone like, hey, you're in year 3, how's it holding up, right? It looks really cool. I mean, maybe both paths, like someone installing it versus us installing it, but I mean, all of it makes sense, but like this, marketing is amazing, right? So like maybe what does real life look like?
That's true, because the only places where I've seen something like that implemented were on flat grounds.
Right.
For just maintaining like driveways, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've never seen it on a boat ramp type
Right.
of situation.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a huge incline or anything, but I mean, I would like, maybe we'll get you some pictures or something when we're happy with it.
Are there any other boat ramps in the area that's used this method?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well,
Randall probably has the best idea.
yeah, in down in Fort Benning, Georgia, not where the tanks go, but where they have stream crossing, they have done that.
Okay.
And for a stream crossing, where they take jeeps or
Got it.
and stuff like that across there. But where the tanks are, they would use what they call a concrete mat, where there's little blocks of concrete that are cabled together, and they pick them up and just set them in place. Things go on that. Those are more expensive, and that's why I didn't recommend it in our situation.
And it seemed like with the concrete, it probably should be more like a boat ramp where it goes past the water line. Once you go past the water line, it gets different, which then Eagle wants more stuff.
That would be, those are a lot more expensive and they require a big crane to bring them in and set them in place. This, we can do ourselves if we wanted to, get the labor to do it. it's doable. You know, and I've seen in Grand Rapids, they put some of this down. And they had, it was a environmental group, that community organization that actually put it in place.
So DNR uses it. So I would love to reach out and get pictures and thoughts and feelings from my DNR contacts throughout the state for the equestrian trails.
Sure. Just pass it along to Justin there.
Absolutely.
Great resource.
Awesome. Yeah, just like, yeah, real life examples of it. Seems to line up on the pictures, it makes sense. But, you know, but if there's other satisfied customers, that would make sense.
And a paved type of boat ramp, like a nice boat ramp. I mean, the last one that I saw quoted that they were doing was over on Fair Lake in Dalton Township. Took 3 years for the permit to go through the state. And they had a grant that was going to match for $200,000. The price of the project had increased by $200,000 over a couple of years. Ends up being something like $500,000 project. They add up to a fortune.
Yeah.
So not reasonable. Not within, not within something we're going to budget, which is why I was trying to look at like, man, if we could do one in-house for 10 grand somewhere,
Right.
that makes them all feasible. That's very possible. If it grows to 20 grand, still feasible. You probably don't want to tick off more than one a year, one every 2 years or something. If it's 30 grand, you know, just $500,000, never going to happen. Deal with the rest.
Let's see. Let's clean up now. We've talked about the Catalpa rain garden or ditch. We've already talked with you. There's no other
More information.
Right.
So what about the woods cleanup?
So the woods cleanup is interesting. Over the last few years, I've had people at different points that have contacted me and said, listen, I was walking out your woods and I saw some garbage. Can I clean it up? And obviously my answer is always going to be yes. Like, take extra if you want. But I've had a few people that are like, if I'm cleaning up your woods for you, can I put it in your dump? Like, well, that is very reasonable because they're essentially volunteering their time. I know some people have volunteered their money to pay to throw it away as well. But this person had reached out to me, and I've done this just a few times over the last couple of years. I wrote a letter just saying that, hey, this person gets a free pass because it's coming off township land anyways. And then I informed our transfer station worker, Tom, out there now, who just recently got a 5-star review at the transfer station. So I let him know. Yeah. And which is excellent, right? So, and this guy contacted me. He said, I want to do a project with my grandson to show him community service, giving back, that type of thing. And I want to do this cleanup. So I wrote him a note. And I said, you know, if it goes well, like, let me know how it went. And he said, I'll probably take pictures. And I said, if you do, drop them off. I'll throw them in a packet. I'll show some people. And so he did it. It took a while for him to drop it off, but he dropped it off on a CD. So I put it on here, and it's noticeable. Some of the different spots that they cleaned up made a significant difference.
Yeah.
And so I think they took a couple of trailer loads to the transfer station over a weekend. I think he just planned on doing one day. I think they might have done 2 days. And he included his grandson in there and stuff. And so I just, you know, when someone does something good like that, I always thank them. Obviously very appreciative of that type of stuff. And in this case, he just happened to take pictures too. So just kind of wanted to recognize it as a good thing.
Hopefully Santa's good at it. That was great.
Sounds a lot like the adopted road
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, it's like adopt a wood.
Adopt a park.
Adopt some woods.
Well, and I think that's a good idea to keep in mind. If we have groups that come in and say, hey, do you have a service project that we can do for you?
Yep.
I mean, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
You go collect all this
Yeah.
garbage. Well, you can take it to our transfer station and dump it for free.
Yep. And the only thing we want to watch there, I think, is probably the idea of gaming the system.
Sure.
Now, I've personally been involved in each one. I've written the letter, I've signed it, I've informed Tom, And so I've just coordinated the whole thing, and there hasn't been too many of them, so it's easy to keep track of. The thing, because someone asked about having some sort of like official program, but I think if we write an official policy and have some sort of official thing we give out, then that might become an easy system to game.
Sure.
So it's difficult to make those systems non-gameable. But if we use individual judgment, we're a small enough organization, if we use individual judgment and just make sure that it's not someone taking all the trash out of their own backyard and putting in there, then it ends up being a very good thing for the community for sure.
Would it be possible for them to, collect it in bags in a central location? And then maintenance department take it to the trash? That would,
Yes. So Justin already does something like that with the road cleanup. So people will leave the bags on the side of the road, it goes around with the truck, grabs them. And so we could do the same thing in the woods as well.
That would be good.
we just incorporate it into the wood, into the road cleanup? Make it all part one program?
We could, you just have to recruit someone to do it. So ends up being the big thing.
And if it's out in the woods, please make it where it's not in a section 2 track that I'm gonna get the truck and trailer stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to tell them where to. Yeah.
Well, if you get tight out there, you can always take the Colorado, it's smaller than the other one. Although I did get that where I had it on a 2-track that petered out. I was looking for some sort of complaint out on some of our land. And the 2-track stopped existing after a certain point. And I'd driven over one log. And then it got tight enough on the sides that I couldn't open either one of the doors. And so I'd reach out, turn the mirrors in, back out of there slowly, put some scrapes in the truck. But you can always take the smaller truck. Yes.
I was looking at with Grandpa Sebastian with the should be recognizable.
Yeah.
Especially coming from our board. Because they did something good for the community. I don't know what we should do in terms of recognizing, but even if they would just come in front of us, we could tell them.
I agree. Now, in this case, I talked to him, that was fine and everything. And then when he dropped off the CD, he didn't drop off any contact information.
Oh.
So I have almost no information about it. I could not get a hold of him if I wanted to.
That's something we could put on our Facebook page, something like that too, like a thank you or.
That is possible, yeah. And we did it one time before. We had earlier this year, we had a resident recommend another resident to be recognized, and I'd taken it to the board. We passed a resolution, essentially just with a letter recognizing them, and awarded them that. And then I just framed one. I bought a frame myself, stuck it in the frame, signed it, gave it to them. So they're not real formal programs, but they're kind of the start, the informal start of a potentially formal program. But you're right. I think there's probably going to be a little more focus on like the Facebook pages and stuff, maybe after I leave, which would be good. Just haven't been a specific focus of mine.
Yeah. Good information.
Okay. Item 24, engineer brief, discussion brief.
So the basic idea with this is that if Justin, and it started with Steve in zoning, wondering if he could have a contract with an engineer for ongoing inquiries with roads or drainage, and someone I'd call if he needs a consultation. He had taken it to the planning commission, the planning commission shot it down. But nevertheless, I think Randall was there at a different point somewhere, and he said this should be brought to, maybe in the joint session, it should be brought to this board as well. So it's a similar type of idea. So let's take the Catawba boat ramp as an example. Now, the Eagle only cared about the dredging below the water line, which I proposed as part of a gravel project of the boat ramp as well. But they only cared about below the water line. We still have to contact the county and say, hey, Eagle is fine with this project. Here's our permit. But the county soil and erosion has to sign off still above the water line. And so if Rob Ribbons at the county is running that currently says that, hey, I want an engineer to sign off that you're gonna not have a bunch of stuff fall into the lake in some way when you're putting this mat in. And so he wants something by an engineer. We don't have an engineer to do that. We also don't have a firm that we would normally work with. Now, if it's a small amount, if it's a few $100s, $1,000, I would just end up authorizing it and we can just move forward with it. But even at those levels, especially if it's more, it would be nice to have an engineering firm that we have some sort of ongoing contract with. It's X dollars per hour, and anything Justin has to reach out on, get something checked off on. So otherwise it puts him in a weird situation on whose authority is he moving forward on, or is he waiting on a project, and if we're waiting a few months to go here and then to the board, are we putting a project from this summer into next summer?
The engineer also, we've got the survey thing that we're talking about doing. Well, the engineer would be able to provide that service as well.
That's true.
And then the other thing is some of the, like, Hadley Park, there's a parking issue which didn't get listed, I don't know why. But you have a parking issue there, and you're talking about putting parallel parking along that. And then also laying out the trail for the walking trail. That when we got to that point, we would need engineering services to do that. Or to put together a grant. If you put together a grant, they're gonna want to see a map and some kind of idea, but.
Right, and if it's very expensive, that even is probably something we want to budget for. Because I've seen site plans drawn up for decent projects, Beagle, and we put in for $1 million grant there. That's why we sat on it for 1 year. Total cost of putting together that entire plan and submitting and everything was something like $15,000. So, which would pay off if you get $1 million grant. If it doesn't come through, then you just spent $1 million and we sat on it for a year for nothing to happen. And so we debated that, but so down on the less popular side. And so that should be budgeted for in itself just because it's such a large expense. But if you got a $1,000 or $2,000 engineering project or less, then it makes sense to probably have some of that just at the discretion of Justin. But again, is he just like reaching out to any firm that he wants? Or what I would prefer is a contract with an engineering firm where we're not necessarily paying them on an ongoing basis. It just says, if we contact you for work, this is the rate you charge us at. And then we can just budget for Justin this amount for engineering stuff for the year. This, it's a guesstimate. So a couple of grand for engineering this year. If you want to go over that, come back and see us.
Well, wouldn't it be the prerogative of the township board to retain an engineering firm that serves the entire county needs? Whatever engineering inquiry we need at this level has to still go through the board, township board, for approval. Again, there's a cost, and the township have to authorize that cost. So
I think that's reasonable.
That's the board to actually have the engineering firm on contract.
we could recommend it to them.
Right,
It's their discretion to make
Yeah,
that
of course,
decision.
yeah, right, but it's on there,
I think that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable to request to either come from the planning commission or from this board.
Right.
So because that's probably the two that have the potentiality of using it the most. And Steve had brought it to the planning commission. They weren't particularly interested in it, which is fine. That's their prerogative. And so I think it's a reasonable discussion here as well.
Absolutely.
So do we need a motion to recommend that at this point?
I think that could be reasonable. Essentially, it would be something that the board would probably, the board can move on at any time because eventually it needs to end up in the budget, but we need to have the quotes for what they would be before that, obviously, of who we're going to contract with.
Oh, we at that stage.
I think you could make a motion to recommend that the board look at doing contracts with an engineer. So essentially to collect quotes.
Do I have a motion?
I'm thinking of wording.
Yeah, no worries.
Further discussion, Mr. Chairman. What we're talking about right now is asking or requesting or recommending to the township board that they secure a engineering firm on our future planning. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I'd say, suggesting would be a good term.
Yeah, better word, yeah. Suggesting.
We have a second.
Are you calling that a motion?
Got a motion?
Yeah, that'd be a good motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we got support on it.
Those in favor say aye.
Well, let's raise the question.
Okay,
Okay. What is that we're not looking at with that motion? That need clarification.
It is very general. You're right. And so, but at that point, I think it comes down to, because you're recommending it to the board, it comes down to Heather, and I can start the process and talk it over with her, collecting quotes to bring to the board to contract an engineering firm for all township business, which then would just also apply to Parks and Rec.
I like that.
It keeps things moving.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, there's one is where you pay a monthly fee where they're just on call. But there's another one where it says on an as needed basis. And then they
I would prefer as needed rather than
Yes.
retainer.
Yeah.
Because retainer seems like a slow leak.
Yes.
That's.
And also,
And then what the
Yeah.
quote ends up doing is they quote you for time and materials specific to each type of work.
that's true.
If we knew we needed engineering every month, retainer might make sense, but I don't think we will.
Okay.
But we
You
will
close the
need
question.
it for the projects that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're gonna need it again when they start trying to portion off all these lands. There's like West Shore Engineering is somebody who comes to mind.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're saying we need to carefully word this resolution.
Yes. I think
So,
Jeff got.
I think the wording's fine. I think the wording is fine.
okay.
Okay. All right. But you'll be dealing with the board anyways.
And is the second
Well,
still standing?
Not sued, but I'll talk to
Yeah.
Heather.
You bet.
All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we open up the meeting for public or board comment.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
No other comments? Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Adjourned. All right, Justin, I will get that,
Have a great Christmas, guys.
trying to, my contacts about that, geo.